Here are the top stories for today, January 22nd, 2021. The country has secured around 30 to 40 million doses of coronavirus vaccines for free. Malacanang says the proposal to institutionalize U.P DND Accord is reasonable. Telco services in the country has improved. And the Philippine Space Agency is looking for T-shaped people or those that have the expertise. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Around 30 to 40 million doses of coronavirus vaccines are secured for free by the government from the Covax facility. The Covax facility is a global initiative that brings together governments and vaccine manufacturers to ensure that COVID-19 vaccines will be distributed equitably.
Kinakagalak ko po na ibalita ng ating pong Covax facility para sa Pilipinas ay naaprubahan na po. Sa loob po na posibilidad na makasiguro na mayroon tayo pong mga 30 to 40 million na doses for free para po sa lahat sa ating mga kabayan. It is a global interest na we can contain yung virus through the WHO concept of equitable access to poor countries like us.
Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the task force is now preparing cold chain storage facilities for the arrival of the vaccines next month.
We are presently negotiating with 18 logistics companies, with 4 companies with ultra-cold storage capacity. Ito po ay bahagi ng paghahanda ng gobyerno sa mga darating na bakuna. This is to ensure that we have zero wastage, para makasiguro na ang bakuna ay makarating sa ating mga kababayan, walang masasayang, walang matatapon, at ang efficacy ay ma-preserve at ma-maintain sa kanyang original state.
The Philippines has pledged $100,000 to the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access or Covax facility. The Covax facility aims to ensure equitable access to vaccines, especially for low and middle-income countries. In a tweet, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said he will make good on the pledge. It is not always and only about us, as it is often about the rest of humanity, especially those most disadvantaged. The initiative seeks to deliver 2 billion safe and effective vaccines that passed regulatory approval and WHO pre-qualification by the end of 2021. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. earlier said Manila may get around 30 to 40 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from the Covax facility for free. President Rodrigo Duterte decided to get inoculated with Sinovac. Malacanang said it was the president's personal decision and they need not explain why he chose the said COVID-19 vaccine. The government has so far secured around 25 million doses of Sinovac vaccine, with the first 50,000 doses set to arrive on February 20. It has also signed a term sheet deals with Novavax, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. Youth leaders from the province of Siquijor vowed to help the government in disseminating accurate and relevant news. Siquijor SK President Braille Tumarong said this is a different time to tell people which information is true. He said they are willing to help the government in allaying fears over the COVID-19 vaccine. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar said it is timely for the government to amplify media literacy to the youth, considering that they are the majority of the country's population. Secretary Andanar was in Siquijor along with the officials and representatives from the Philippine Information Agency, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the regional counterpart of the Department of Health to impart the recently launched communications campaign for the national COVID-19 vaccination program. Malacanang said the Senate's proposal to institutionalize the 1989 U.P DND Accord, which limits the entry of government forces in university campuses, is reasonable. Senators Joel Villanueva, Juan Edgardo Angara, Nancy Binay and Grace Poe filed Senate Bill 2002, which intends to include a provision similar to the scrap DND UP Accord of 1989 in Republic Act 9500 or the UP Charter. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, however, said the proposed measure needs to get the support of President Rodrigo Duterte before it can be enforced. He also expressed willingness to mediate between Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana and UP President Danilo Concepcion.
We always respect the prerogative of our legislators to legislate national policies. No? So sa akin po, that seems to be a reasonable proposal, but that has to be enacted po into law. As I have said, no, I've offered my good offices. Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has accepted, and I continue to await word from President Danilo Concepcion.
Meanwhile, Lorenzana said he would oppose measures institutionalizing the DND-UP Accord, as this will make the agreement permanent. He said he is ready to go up to the Supreme Court to defend his action and that the bill would not prosper. Military officials clarified they have no intention of putting military camps inside any of the UP campuses, nor will they suppress activist groups with the scrapping of the 1989 UP DND Accord. The said agreement mainly prohibits the military and police from entering the UP campus without permission or notification from the UP administration except in hot pursuit or in similar emergency cases, and if it was requested by state university officials. All the details from Janice Cabe.
With the abrogation of the UP DND agreement, Southern Luzon Command Chief Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr. said government security forces will now have the chance to engage and explain to students how the CP-PNPA works. Parlade said that while looking at a list of UP graduates and undergraduates who were recruited by CP-PNPA front organizations, their senseless deaths could have been prevented had the military been allowed to engage them through seminars or lectures. He also clarified that the abrogation of the deal does not mean there will be AFP troops patrolling UP campuses. Meanwhile, Philippine Army Chief Lieutenant General Cirilito Sobihana said that while they recognize UP as the home of the best and brightest students of the country, the military should not be prevented from doing its job. He said reports indicate that the CP-PNPA-NDF constantly targets young and brilliant individuals in their deceptive recruitment schemes inside the campus. For Northern Luzon Command Chief Lieutenant General Arnulfo Marcelo Burgos Jr., the termination of the accord is a sign that we are no longer in the times that freedom is curtailed and the academe is prevented from thriving in its environment. He said the move does not mean censorship, as academic freedom remains and will be advocated and safeguarded by the armed forces of the Philippines. Burgos assured that they will respect the need for prior notice before any lawful operations with proper warrants. Meanwhile, Colonel Joel Alejandro Macnac of the AFP Human Rights Office said the agreement was abrogated for the simple reason that the operations of the AFP and the PNP should not be hampered by a one-sided, obsolete contract. He said the accord has given special treatment to UP for more than 30 years and in one way or another prevented state forces from protecting the students from being recruited by the CP-PNPA-NDF. He said the Commission on Human Rights should not be alarmed by the withdrawal of the DND from the agreement, as the AFP is not a suppressor of civil or political rights but a protector of human rights. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cabe.
Chairman Prospero De Vera of the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, said the agreement between the University of the Philippines and the Department of National Defense was destined to be problematic. De Vera said there is still no clear detailed operational details to implement the provisions of the pact. He said the joint monitoring group, composed of UP regents and administrators, military and police officials, has not met regularly to determine compliance with the agreement. They do not review alleged violations, determine appropriate penalties, and recommend revisions given the changing times. De Vera urged the DND, the UP, and all higher education institutions to exercise sobriety as he called for a joint discussion among parties concerned. The Department of National Defense has canceled its 1989 agreement with the University of the Philippines, which limits the entry of military and police in UP campuses. The move seeks to improve the fight against insurgency, but some lawmakers call it a suppression of freedom. What is your take on this? Let us hear the opinions of some of our kababayans in our Boses ng Masa.
Ako gusto ko pag-usapan. Para both side merong agreement, both side, yung walang masasaktan, walang maapi. Hindi naman ako against sa'yo, hindi rin against tayo sa government. Kaya lang siyempre, hindi ko alam yung punot dulo nila kung ano bang, ba't gano'n nangyari. Dapat mag-usap na lang sila, pares naman silang ano eh.
Hindi ko gets kung bakit nila ginagawa ngayon kasi ang dami pang dapat problemahin. Tapos inuuna nila yung sitwasyon dito sa UP kasi ang tagal-tagal nung award na yun, wala naman nagiging problema. Tsaka nakakatakot din kasi baka bigla na kaming hulihin dito, di ba?
Pabor ako doon sa yung ginawa ni Secretary Lorenzana na pwede na yung di ba parang kinancel yung agreement noon long before na wala na yung na hindi na pwede yung kasi dati hindi pwedeng pumasok ang military dito parang parang meron nga silang kasunduan tama lang sa akin lang, personal opinion ko, tama lang yun. Para yung mga gumagawa ng hindi tama na labag sa batas o yung mga makakaliwang grupo, matigil na para tumahimik na yung bansa natin. Wala, yung gulo Kung wala yung mga na yan, mga grupo na yan na gustong ibagsak ang gobyerno, wala tayong asenso talaga.
Unang-una, yung freedom ng mga estudyante. Ngayon, yung freedom ng mga estudyante, medyo malilimitahan. Yung mga activities, parang malilimitahan na rin. Kasi konting kumpulan lang, baka akala lang recruitment na ng kung ano-ano o anong activity na. Alam mo naman ngayon, masyado ng ang daming violence Hindi natin alam kung ano yung gusto nilang gawin Di ba? Ang nangyayari nga parang nagiging yung mga karamihan ng pulis, hindi naman lahat, nagiging trigger happy, baka maya may masita lang sila tapos umalma, patayin na nila.
Still to come, the Justice Department dismissed charges against Senator Koko Pimentel. And more former NPA rebels received financial aid from the government. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP, at ng himpilang ito.
Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said internet speed in the country has improved based on the speed test conducted last month. Roque said the Philippines was shown to have improved by 297.47% for fixed broadband and 202.41% for mobile broadband. The said data is for the month of December 2020 compared to internet speed test data in July 2016 when the Duterte administration started.
Well, dapat po talaga na mag-improve pa ang serbisyo ng ating mga telecoms provider dahil lang nasabi ko na nga po nung nagkaroon tayo ng espesyal na edition ng presidential press briefing dito sa mga telcos, hindi naman katanggap-tanggap na nahuhuli tayo sa ating mga karatig bansa at kinakailangan tayo ay magnais na maging world-class pagdating po sa telekomunikasyon. Ginawa na ng paraan ng ating presidente mismo ang pagpapabilis ng pag-issue ng mga permits sa pagtatayo ng mga telecommunications towers. Dahil dumami nga po ang nag-issue ng permits, tumaas din ang bilang ng towers na naipatayo.
The Department of Justice has junk charges filed against Senator Koko Pimentel III after he visited Makati Medical Center even as he tested positive for COVID-19. The Office of the Prosecutor General said it has resolved to dismiss the complaint against Pimentel for lack of probable cause. Spokesperson Prosecutor Hani Delgado said the Office of the Prosecutor General ruled that Pimentel is not a public health authority and not obliged to report. It also said when he went to SNR BGC on March 16 and MMC on March 24, 2020, he only knew about his health condition while he was already at the premises of the hospital. Prosecutors also said the complainant lawyer Rico Quicho was not the proper party to file the instant complaint and the pieces of evidence he presented were based only on news reports. The MMC earlier said Pimentel breached its protocols when he went to the hospital with his wife who was about to give birth through cesarean section. Malacanang on Thursday expressed confidence that Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno can clear his name from graft charges in connection with a 1.75 billion peso PHILSA deal. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque vouched for Diokno's integrity. Roque said the BSP chief still enjoys President Rodrigo Duterte's trust and confidence. Diokno and 6 other BSP officials are facing graft charges before the Office of the Ombudsman due to supposed anomalies in the supply and equipment contract for the implementation of PHILSA. Ricardo Fulgencio IV, chairperson of the Stop Corruption Organization of the Philippines, sued Diokno and other BSP officials for requiring winning bidder All Card International to procure raw materials for Philippine ID cards from Swedish firm OVD Kinagram. Fulgencio claimed that the respondents gave Kinagram undue advantage in the process and unwarranted benefits. The Department of Social Welfare and Development in Region 12 released around 2.6 million in assistance last year to former New People's Army rebels. DSWD Region 12 Director Cesario Joel Espejo said they served over 700 rebel returnees in the region as part of the government's enhanced reintegration program. He cited the rollout of convergence initiatives in support of the national government's whole-of-nation approach to end the communist insurgency as stated in President Duterte's Executive Order Number 70. Espejo said they will continue their partnership this year with local government units, police and military and other government agencies to deliver more services to former rebels and their communities. President Rodrigo Duterte on Thursday enjoined the Bangsamoro people to remain loyal to the cause of peace. Duterte made the call in his keynote speech during the commemoration of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao's 2nd anniversary. Duterte lauded the collaboration between the national government and the Bangsamoro government. Duterte was also elated that reforms and mechanisms have been executed by Technical Education Minister Mohaguer Iqbal and Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III to foster growth in the Bangsamoro region. Duterte also thanked BARMM Chief Minister Ahod Murad Ibrahim for his exemplary leadership and efforts to ensure that BARMM will achieve meaningful self-governance. The BARMM, established in 2019, replaced the now defunct autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao in the hopes of achieving lasting peace and security in the region. In our business news, average inflation this year is expected to hit below 3.2% this year as projected by monetary authorities given the economic impact of the pandemic. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Deputy Governor Francisco Daquila Jr. on Thursday said the balance of risks to inflation leans on the downside. Downside risks to the rate of price increases this year include the dampening effects of the pandemic, which impact economic activities. Upside risks, on the other hand, include weather-related disturbances, which Daquila said are on the short term. Amidst the acceleration of inflation rate in the last 2 months of 2020, average inflation stood at 2.6%. For 2022, the BSP's average inflation forecast is at 2.9%. Both this and next year's projected average inflation rate is within the government's 2 to 4% target band until 2024. Up next, the National Privacy Commission has raised concern over the change in the privacy policy of WhatsApp Messenger. And the Philippine Space Agency is looking for T-shaped people or those that have the expertise. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The United States, under newly sworn-in President Joe Biden, is likely to maintain its position in the South China Sea by continuing to uphold the 2016 Arbitral Award. Philippine Ambassador to Washington, D.C., Jose Manuel Romualdez on Thursday said State Secretary-designate Anthony Blinken himself affirmed that China will remain a priority in the U.S. foreign policy. He said that the U.S. policy on China will be more or less the same as what the Trump administration had, but the approach will be different. Retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, meanwhile, hoped to see Washington continue its freedom of navigation and overflight operations in the South China Sea, saying this serves as the most robust enforcement of the Arbitral Award. Under the previous Trump administration, Washington endorsed the landmark decision that ruled against Beijing's vast 9-dash line claim in the disputed region. The Department of Foreign Affairs is cutting off foreign travel as it looks for ways to replenish its already depleted passport revolving fund. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. revealed on Wednesday that the government's entire passport revolving fund is gone, and it appears to Apo Production Unit, the country's passport printing contractor, has reached 388 million pesos. He said the revolving fund was reportedly eaten up by travel allowances, insurance, and other expenses. The official, in the meantime, appealed for patience, saying the agency will look for money to replenish the fund. He has also stopped building renovation and capital expenses. The passport revolving fund may be used by the DFA for the improvement of its passporting and consular services and other department services. In our 4 news, U.S. President Joe Biden started his first few hours by undoing previous policies of the Trump administration, such as rejoining the World Health Organization and issuing other policies on immigration and health. More on this from Marita Mawahe.
As part of his policies in his first few hours in office, U.S. President Joe Biden reversed the U.S. process of withdrawing from the World Health Organization. Biden signed an executive order ceasing a withdrawal process that his predecessor Donald Trump initiated last year. According to media reports, Biden picked Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, to lead a U.S. delegation at the WHO's annual meeting later this week. Biden issued the order as he rolled out his national strategy to bring America out of the nadir of its grim coronavirus pandemic, with a warning that even with his efforts, the worst is yet to come. To expedite recovery, Biden issued a spate of executive orders that establish a wide gamut of measures to thwart the spread, including ordering masks be worn on all mass interstate travel, bolstering testing and vaccination, and mandating that all visitors to the U.S. test negative before departing and quarantine upon arrival. The newly installed president issued a total of 17 executive orders aimed at undoing much of his predecessor's legacy and policies that span the gamut from immigration to climate and health policy. Biden described the efforts as starting points as he began his 4 years in office, saying his policy agenda is bold and vital. Additional orders placed the U.S. on track to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, the landmark agreement aimed to limit global warming and achieve a carbon-neutral world by 2050. He also signed an executive order ending a travel ban on several Muslim-majority countries, which the new administration called discriminatory. Biden signed just 4 of the 17 expected orders with journalists present, but the White House was expected to provide additional details on the others. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
In sports, the Philippine Sports Commission has shifted the postponed National Sports Summit into a 3-part program with a series of weekly online sessions to be held on January 27. The 2021 edition, starting with a weekly conference-type online session, will cover 25 sports topics. United States Sports Academy President T.J. Rosendich will open the summit with a lecture forum on sports success from a first-world perspective. Davnor Sports Development Head Giovanni Gulanes will share his expertise in sports development programs in local government units on February 4. Philippine Sports Institute Dean of Philippine Sports Henry Daut will tackle talent identification as grassroots development on February 11. And on February 28, veteran sports writer and UP professor Tessa Jasmines will deliver her lecture on the value of sports marketing. The National Privacy Commission raised some concerns on the new privacy policy of popular messaging app WhatsApp, which allows the sharing of its users' data to parent firm Facebook. In a statement, the NPC said the broad language used by WhatsApp in its new privacy terms created confusion and concerns. Among them are critical privacy questions such as the scope of data that Facebook and its other companies will be able to harvest and whether the new policy will be mandatory. Other initial concerns include the involvement of third parties, the authority to delete accounts, and the use of personal data for advertising and marketing. The NPC also said sharing of user data with companies associated with Facebook was a point of contention to the public due to the company's lapses in personal data protection and management. To alleviate some concerns of WhatsApp's Filipino users, the NPC said it will directly coordinate with WhatsApp to gather specific details on the new policy. The Philippine Space Agency, or PHILSA, is looking for T-shaped people or those that have scientific expertise as it develops its manpower. PSA Director Joel Marciano Jr. said the agency is looking to hire more people and bring space education to high school students. Marciano said PHILSA targets to educate high school students about cube satellites and nanotechnology to integrate space education in STEM or science, technology, engineering, and mathematical studies. PHILSA recently announced the start of building a next-generation satellite under the Advanced Satellite for the Philippines project of the Stamina for Space program. They have partnered with Surrey Space Technology Limited for the design and manufacture of a multispectral satellite which can aid decision-making in agriculture, disaster management, national security, and coastal monitoring and ocean studies. The expected launch year of the satellite is 2023. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. The country has secured around 30 to 40 million doses of coronavirus vaccines for free. Malacanang says the proposal to institutionalize UP DND Accord is reasonable. Telco services in the country has improved. And the Philippine Space Agency is looking for T-shaped people or those that have the expertise. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day and happy weekend to all.